Hi, this is part 2 of reparations. Part 1, I mainly encouraged you to get your DNA done to show that you do have African ancestry, and some of you have and some of you haven't. I strongly suggest that you go and get your DNA done and keep records. Because, see, there's a conspiracy going on to erase black people from records. You know, we will become extinct. Those that were closely in line in the ancestry of the people that were brought here from Africa on the boat. And all I can say is, it looks like it's going to be about 50 years from now before we have reparations. Think about it. How many years has gone by that we have been talking about reparations? Now, back when we were on Soul Beat, in the 90s, the latter 90s, we were talking about reparations. See how many years that have gone by? And it doesn't look like anything is being done about it. Our children are the ones that's going to have to fight this. So what we're going to have to do is make sure we have the records necessary for them to fight, that we keep ourselves, about our own families. Because if we don't take care of our own history within our family, you'll be eliminated. Now, before I get started, I think I need to go to the dictionary and read what reparations mean in the dictionary. Okay, this is that big dictionary. Let me get my magnifying glass. Okay, this is what it says for reparations. The making of amends for wrong or injury done. Reparations, and this is the example they give. Reparations for an injustice. And usually you get reparations through materials. That's how it was. Well, we sure didn't get our 40 acres and a mule. Now, I want to go to the law dictionary pertaining to reparations. And the law dictionary says this, because we're going to be trying to fight this legally. The law dictionary says this: reparations. To redress. No. Number 1. The redress of an injury, amends for a wrong inflicted. It's the redress of an injury, amends for a wrong inflicted. Now, redress. Let's look up what the law dictionary say about redress. Redress, to receive, no, it's the receiving satisfaction for an injury sustained. Now, this is all directly related to slavery. I suggest, for those of you that don't know about the enslavement of the African, it's time for you to study the history of the United States and the history of black folk in this country. The enslavement of the African was the most dehumanizing form of slavery ever practiced in the history of this country. In fact, of the world. No one in any of the other countries have practiced the system that we have here. And guess what? We still have problems. still have racial problems. So getting reparations, it's going to be our children that's going to do that. I hope not that many generations away, but it will be our children. Now, what we need to do is to prepare our children to have the information necessary. So, you have to make sure you have your DNA done. Make sure you have birth records, death records, all kinds of records of your family. Now, how my family and how we decided to do is that we're going to have everyone that's going to participate in this documentation of our ancestry. Everyone's going to get a DNA test. Everyone is going to put together a binder of their life, important information. Make sure you have your birth certificate, death certificate, the birth certificates of your children, marriage certificates, all kinds of stuff that's important that we're having problems finding about our ancestors because they didn't keep the records. So it's our responsibility to keep records. Now, to give you an example, I have my own binder that has all of my information in it. And some of it I have in the plastic form and all of that. I have my certificates of completion, as well as all of my documentation of my accomplishments, as they call it. Now, many people don't know that I came from a family of ministers. My mother was a minister. Both of my brothers are ministers. And my mother was ordained by her uncle, who was a bishop. Now, I have ministry on both my father and mother's side, because I have uncles that were ministers on my father's side as well, and deacons and, elders that they sometimes call themselves. Now, I myself, even though I am a minister, I also have a church charter. Now, I have not put that in full motion because the church that the Lord is leading me to have, I can't collect tithes. I can't spend any time on funerals, weddings, baptisms, none of that. I'm supposed to provide pastoral counseling sessions as well as Bible studies for individuals. I'm here to prepare you for the court of divine judgment. And if you wish to be prepared, I provide these services. I can't charge you a thing for them. But anyway, I'm keeping track of all of my accomplishments. And like I said, I even have my doctorate of divinity certificate in here. Of course, my certificate of ordination, my counseling certificate where I completed the studies. And people say, well, how did you do that? You answer thousands and thousands of questions before you receive your certificates. And I did it over the years. I have a lot of stuff in here. I have my first goal setting stuff. I've accomplished a lot on that. This has been revised. I also have a picture of me with the garment that I wore when I won So Be Belle of the Ball, the 25th anniversary one. I have where I've been in the paper, I've been on the radio, and all types of stuff. I even have the notes and letters and things that my students have given me, thanking me for teaching them. I have a lot of information in here, including all my Jim Beam bottles. I have the trains, the cars, the trucks, rabbits and poodles. Those were all the collector's porcelain china Jim Beam bottles I did collect. I keep track of all of my stuff. And that's what you need to do. Because when it comes time for your children to prove that they have African in them, it's time for us now to start that documentation. Not only are you supposed to get your DNA done, all of your children and everyone that's African American should get their DNA done. And right now it's really inexpensive. So I suggest that you try to save some money to do it now, because when it comes time close for reparations, the people that do DNA tests are going to be charging, instead of $50, $60, and $70, it's going to be $5,000, $6,000, and $7,000, because they know you're getting ready to get some reparation monies, so they figure they can take part of it from you. Now, the highest amount of figure when it comes to individuals that they have talked about giving money out, the highest figures are $100,000, and that ain't no money at all. If they give out $100,000 to black folk right now, the only thing we'll do is kill each other, because we have no plans, no goals set, not any written goals. You may have dreams or in your head, but you haven't written anything down. You have to have goals set with an action plan and timetables. And this is what black people don't have. Well, we're going to have to start now, because if you don't understand this now and you don't prepare your children, there will be no reparations until we get to that part psychologically. And I just strongly suggest you start documenting everything, getting paperwork for everything, because at the time you need it, and you go down there to the county, city, or whatever to get the documentation, you won't be able to get it at that time. So you need to be putting all of this history together of your family now. And this is what my family has decided to do. We are all going to be cremated, and our ashes are going to be put in an urn that's in the form of a book, where it could be kept on a bookshelf. The small binder pertaining to each person will be next to that urn, and we'll have a picture of the person outside. We're in the midst of putting all that together now. We have 3 urns. I'm putting documentation together for the other part of the family that passed before we decided to do this, but we decided to cremate. And I'm going to put their binders next to them. So whoever is going to be the responsible person in your family, they are to keep this. If we don't, we will be erased out of history, at least the parts of it that we need to have to document who we are. If we don't do it, it won't be done by anyone else. And so we need to now start documenting things so our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren will have some documentation of their history, and they'll be able to see it. We're good at taking pictures and have thousands of pictures all over the place to view them. Well, we need pictures also, but not like the way we've been taking them. We need to keep some of those pictures in a way that they'll last long term, and for documentation of your family. Now, what was I? I had 25% European and 75% African in me. Well, there's going to be some people that are just that opposite. 25% African and 75% European. We're going to have to make sure that we don't allow them to play the game and say that we have to have at least 25% African in us. They messed us up so much we may have 4, 5, 6 different races mixed up in us. That's going to be difficult to be 25% of anything. So we have to do exactly the way they treated us. They start off with that 1/8 and 16th, 32nd, 64th. It came down, boiled down to where they said they didn't care if we had 1 drop of African in us. We be nigger. Okay? So, we have to let them know that if we have 1 drop of African in us, we are entitled to reparations. They can't play the game that they played with us and the Indians. We had to prove that we had 25% American Indian in us in order to get any of the Indian money that was given out, the grant monies and things like that. We couldn't prove we had 25% American Native Indian in us. Now we can, but then we couldn't. So we missed out on the Indian thing. If we mess around and miss out on the African thing, we are in trouble. For real. All of our lives. We will always be slaves if we don't do this ourselves. We will always be slaves. We were conditioned to hate self-kind, and we have a slave mentality. And until you realize that that's what has been going on, you're not going to even take the first step in putting your family history together. Not even the first step. But that's on us, people. Again, we have to look at what we're doing that's causing us problems. So, in closing, get you a binder. I started off with a 1-inch binder and started putting things in, and I've been doing this for over 30-something years now. So everything I just started, and now I have a 5-inch ring binder. But anyway, you should have one for you. Start off with a small one, and then once you just keep going up to 2-inch ring, 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch ring. Put everything in there. Make sure you start off putting your birth certificates. If you're married, your marriage certificates, your children's birth certificates, and things of that nature. You should have all of that information close by. And we are really bad at that, people. African Americans, we are bad at that. So hopefully you understand why I'm telling you to get your history together, and you get out there and do it. Bye.